Welcome back, Heat Seekers. We are back with your Week 6 IDP Waiver Wire pickups. These are guys that are hopefully going to help you propel yourself to championship greatness. With that being said, I am joined by my Monday night co-host, as always, Mr. Kraig. My friend, who are we talking about today?
Yeah, so first off the bat, keep in mind bye weeks are starting. You have the Falcons, Jets, Saints, and 49ers all on byes. So take that into account and also be trying to plan ahead here. If you find someone that got dropped that shouldn't have been, that because they're on waivers or something, if you have bench spots, scoop up guys that you can save that are going to be more useful later. But for this week, for our ads, first one off the bat here, we have Anthony Barr. He returned this past week to the Vikings, and he got 100% snap share. He didn't do a whole lot. It wasn't that great of a matchup for him, and the game just didn't play out that way. But he's a proven veteran that has a decent floor, and with that sort of snap share, he's a guy that you can plug in there if you have a bye, or, of course, injuries are always mounting up. That's going to get you a few points and has the potential to get a big game against the Panthers this week.
Yeah, he's good for tackles, not necessarily big on getting you much else historically that I can recall.
Yep.
All right, who's next?
Next one. This is one going to be contingent on injury. AJ Klein is a Buffalo Bills designated Matt Milano fill-in. Whenever Milano's out, he's the guy the past couple of years that fills in, and he does well. Like this past week, he only had a 63% snap share, but had 8 solos and an assist. And they are going to be playing Tennessee, who gives up the most points to opposing linebackers. So it's another great spot. Just be aware that don't play him if Milano is going to play. And also the Bills have a week 7 bye week, so he'd be a 1-week guy for you at the moment unless you have deep benches.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously he hasn't graded out well on the year, but he hasn't got a ton of action in the 5 weeks. He's gotten 15 solos, 3 assists, and just hasn't been super involved. But when injury spikes, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Who's next?
Damian Wilson, this one is interesting with the Joe Schobert trade to start the year, him leaving the Jaguars and Wilson filled in that spot. And now Miles Jack has fallen out of favor with that coaching staff. He had the green dot, which is for play calling, taken away from him. Now that was split between a safety, Rayshon Jenkins, who we've talked about before, and Wilson in the game. And Jack also left due to injury to his back. So we have no idea if he's going to be playing or not over in London. Again, they play the Dolphins this week. But Wilson has had at least 5 combined tackles each game so far, and he has had a higher snap share this past week with Jack out. So at the moment anyway, it seems like he's the linebacker to own. And if they're getting rid of play calling from their young, what had been a stud linebacker and Jack, who knows what the coaching staff is doing, but Wilson seems to be the guy going forward this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see long-term what it looks like, but Wilson has produced when given the opportunity. And don't forget, if you guys like these linebackers, hit that like button. Who are we talking about next?
One more linebacker here, and this one is just a throw-in. I'm not expecting a ton out of him, but again, if you need a floor because of bye weeks and on a defense that is probably going to get a lot of play this week, it's Kevin Minter. He had filled in for Levante David, who left with what was a high ankle sprain, and he'll probably be out at least a week or 2 here. He had a 48% snap share, which is just whatever David left him with once David left the game. He had 2 solos and an assist. You probably see more Devin White more than anything, but of course he's not going to be available in your league. So if you're desperate to get a linebacker who's probably going to get nearly 100% snap share and that potential for points for you, Minter's a nice pickup.
Yeah, this is it. And he absolutely will. And it looks like from what I was reading, prepping for the show, it's 3 to 4 weeks minimum potential. But with those injuries, anything's possible.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to the D line, who are we talking about?
Defensive lineman. The first one, sort of old name blast from the past here, Everson Griffin. He missed week 2 due to a car accident, gotten deer hit. But since then, he's had really nice games where he's had at least a sack and a couple, I think it's a minimum of 3 combined tackles. And they're playing the Panthers this week, which give up the most points to opposing defensive ends so far on the year, which puts him in a great spot. Of course, Danielle Hunter is the main guy, but the defensive line as a whole hasn't been doing poorly for him. They've just been having sort of other issues. I really like Griffin as a pickup this week. Just be aware he also has a bye in week 7, so you'd either end up cutting him or stashing him for a week if you wanted to keep him.
Yeah, this Carolina offensive line grades out as one of the worst, and it's not going to get any better. So he should be able to feast this week, at least get you 1, maybe if we're lucky 2 sacks, and then something else to go with it, some assists, some solos, something of the like. All right, who are we talking about next?
One of your guys on the Detroit Lions, Trey Flowers, he returned from injury, and they didn't even have him on a reduced snap share, really. He led their edge players with 78%, and he had a good game, 4 solos and assists, tackle for a loss and a sack. And Cincinnati is their opponent coming up here, and they still have offensive line issues. They've given up the 6th most sacks on the year. So I like him on a defense that clearly is playing hard for their head coach, that the head coach is motivating them and they're buying into him. I like him this week against Cincinnati to get you a big player too.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it because their only pass rusher, Romeo Quara, being on IR doesn't help.
Yeah.
Flowers is about the next best thing. And even when you look at Cincy's offensive line, they're even if they double, which they probably will, they'll either ship with a tight end or they'll double him up. He should still be able to get some good action there. So who's the D tackle we want to talk about today?
Yeah, this is a guy, he's been a big name. Production really hasn't matched up to it, but that's just the position he's in with the team. It's Ed Oliver. He has been a quality defensive lineman. He's a tackle, usually for the Buffalo Bills. He leads them as far as defensive tackles with a 57% snap share, but there is a heavy rotation across this defensive line in general in Buffalo to keep guys fresh. Tennessee, we had mentioned them before. That's their week 6 opponent here on Monday night. They give up the 2nd most points to opposing defensive tackles this year. Just be aware that he has a bye coming up in week 7 too. But he's a guy that some leagues he has a little bit higher ownership if you're going to be in a defensive tackle specific league, but unless you're in a really deep league, just due to his overall lack of production from that spot, he's available more than he probably should be given the matchup here.
Absolutely. If you guys enjoy the great IDP content we give you every week, subscribe, hit the notification icon. With that being said, let's finish up with the secondary. Who do we want to talk about first back there?
Yeah, so this is sort of last man standing type of situation in the defensive backfield for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jordan Whitehead. So he had missed week 1 due to injury, but he's had a 79% snap share average in the last 4 games. It was higher this past week with Antoine Winfield, who's the other starter, out. Mike Edwards backs him up both. He had played as a starter, so he wasn't there. And Whitehead on the field more. He's had 13 solos, an assist, and a tackle for a loss. And again, not a whole lot of production, but Philadelphia is who they're playing this week. Tampa Bay is going to be putting up points on that Philadelphia defense through the air. And I think Philly's going to be moving the ball, which gives them that potential for more points in the defensive backfield. And Philly gives up the 3rd most points to opposing safeties on the year so far. So it is a good matchup for the safeties.
Yeah, if you're looking for production, he could give you one of those banger type weeks. All right, who's next?
Yeah, so we had gone through and done these before the Monday night game happened, and this guy almost had one of the plays of the year here, Julian Blackman with Darius Leonard, the lateral that I still think was a lateral. I don't see in what world that was a forward pass if you watch the game, but regardless of that, Julian Blackman's the next name here. Through the first 4 games, not including week 5, I haven't gone through that yet, but he had a 99% snap share, and I'm assuming it was something similar to that. He had 18 solos, 5 assists, a tackle for a loss, and 1 pass deflection without whatever he had on Monday night. Houston is right around the top 10. I think they're like 11 or 12 and most points given up to opposing safeties, and we've seen they can move the ball there in Indianapolis, which is going to put pressure on Davis Mills in that offense to be thrown and making plays again. So Julian Blackman is a name that sort of takes a second seat to Kari Willis, who's main safety there when healthy, but Blackman's been putting up nice numbers too.
For sure. Yeah. It's a defense that needs some guys to step up like that. So he's been playing well and definitely a good pickup. Is available in a lot of places. I've seen him on waivers in a lot of places. What cornerback do we want to finish up with?
Yeah, so there's a few. Depending on who is healthy and starting, you can take your pick, but it's up in the air who the second cornerback is going to be in this matchup for the Tennessee Titans against the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going with Janoris Jenkins. He has about a 97% snap share on the year. It's a secondary that just wasn't looking good to start the year, and then they got hit hard with injuries. Week 6 is Buffalo, who gives up the most points to opposing cornerbacks, and we just see him lighting it up week after week pretty much this year. And he has 18 solos, 5 assists, 2 pass deflections. Oh, he's going to be out on the field. They're going to be throwing the ball against that Tennessee offense. I like Jenkins as a pickup. There's other ones like Christian Fulton has played really well for them, but he had been injured and it's unclear if he's going to play. Caleb Farley played a little bit. If Fulton's back, he's probably not playing as much. It's just a mess right now behind Jenkins. So I'm going with the guy that it appears is going to be the for sure guy on the field.
Yeah, I think Fulton grades out as their top corner, but Jenkins is getting plenty of targets throughout the first part of the season so far. So definitely a good choice if you're putting your money on somebody who's healthy and going to get targeted to get you some action. That's it, folks. That is defensive line, linebacker, secondary. Thank you guys for hanging out. Hit that like, the subscribe, the notification icon. Don't forget rotoheat.com for all of the great IDP articles that we put together, because there's Kraig and Randy and I that do some IDP stuff throughout the season and in the off season. And don't forget to check out our tier videos. We drop our tiers each week so you can find out on the offensive side who you need to be starting as well. And we'll talk to you guys again soon.